This week on The Game Adventure is the ghost of E3 rising from the grave as a huge week of summer showcases kicks off, plus Bungie announces the end of an era for Destiny 2 and some first impressions from the brand new Yoshi game after playing it on the couch with my kids. Let's go. The Game Adventure podcast is a weekly family-friendly show keeping you up to date on all the latest news in video games. We'll also mix in a heavy dose of nostalgia with retro games and even things like how the worlds of tech and culture and even faith interact with video games as an art form. We're doing it all in less than an hour every Saturday morning, so let's get started. What is up, everybody? Happy Saturday or whatever day it is when you are listening to this. Hope you've had a fantastic week so far. It's been a relatively quiet week on the gaming news front. But we do have some stuff to talk about today, so let's go ahead and jump into some of the industry news for this week. The first big announcement was that Insider Gaming announced this independent digital showcase that they locked in for May 28th, and they're going to show off 55 games, including 12 world premieres. Sony even jumped in with this last-minute trademark right for Break-In, before their State of Play that they're going to have on June 2nd, which is just a big showcase of their games. So that's kind of fun because that means something could be announced by Sony soon. Usually they do those last minute trademark filings so that it's kind of a game they play where they don't want people to know what they're doing too early. So they don't want to file the trademark too soon, but they also don't want to be too late where people would figure it out before they actually get their trademark filed. So it's a weird balance that these companies play when it comes to trademark filings and website reservations and stuff like that. So I love the fact that we're going to get kind of a showcase from Insider Gaming. It definitely brings back the peak magic of E3, the Electronics Entertainment Expo back in the day when we used to talk about this every June. There was usually a 3 or 4 days worth of just nonstop conferences held by every major console maker, but also the game production studios too. So you would hear from the main studios about their next game that was coming out. So it's exciting that we kind of get this happening again, albeit not in the same form that it was, but still fun to spend a couple of days kind of getting excited about what's coming next in the world of gaming. So look out for that. We'll definitely have some stuff to talk about next week after that takes place. Take-Two had their CEO was interviewed and basically revealed that the game Borderlands looked very different right before they shipped it. So they decided with Borderlands to do an overhaul to the game's art style. So it looked nothing like the cel-shaded aesthetic that basically made Borderlands look and feel the way that it does. And the price tag for that was what really made an impact. They said it actually cost $50 million to remake the graphic style of this game. And so it's kind of fun. I love the Borderlands art style. It really does make that game what it is. It's a unique blend of open world, heavy RPG mechanics. So you have leveling, you're definitely kind of building up your character as you go into the class that you are. But it's also really still focused on first-person shooter mechanics. So it was the perfect blend of kind of those genres for me. I remember when I first played it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is completely different from what I've done before. And definitely there are some more games like that out now. But at the time, it was quite unique. And the look was unlike anything else. So unfortunately, it's not a game that I can share with my kids. But it is a very important part of that style of gameplay and blend of genres, and the look and feel is just completely unique. So I guess that highlights the benefits of having these super, super huge studios that are working on something like that, that can change directions at the last minute. And really, it kind of speaks to their willingness to take risks by saying it's worth it to us to spend that much money just to make the game that we really believe this needs to be. Some kind of sad news from Bungie, who announced this week that Destiny 2 is getting its last content update. And they've also initiated these really large internal layoffs as kind of their resources pivot fully to the extraction shooter Marathon that has been relatively successful, maybe not as successful as they wanted it to be. And so a lot of the news around this is focusing on Bungie's financial stability under Sony ownership. So like the big story last week was how much money Sony had lost. Really, it was just a revaluation of Bungie as an asset. But this is really kind of the end of an era. So aside from Halo, Destiny is really what built modern Bungie into what it is. And it's tough to hear about these internal layoffs, but it does beg the question, where is Destiny 3? Bungie may have waited a little too long for a sequel, or at least to announce that they're working on a sequel. And maybe they've spent a lot of that time chasing these like live service extraction shooters like Marathon. It's a risky market. There's a lot of competition in that area. So maybe it's time for you to at least hint at the fact that you're working on Destiny 3. At least I hope so. I was never a big fan of Destiny. I did try to play it once or twice and realized, gosh, I just don't have the time to sink into this to really like be good at it. And you kind of have to be good at Destiny in order to enjoy it. But man, the number of friends that I have that continue to play Destiny 2 to this day speaks to its longevity as a brand and as a game. And so I think about time for us to hear some news about Destiny 3 from Bungie. It might be the thing that kind of turns the tide for them in wake of these recent announcements. Steam has overhauled its tag architecture. So they have changed the storefront backend. The storefront is not any different looking, but they have added on the backside some, I think it's 17 specific new tags. And they deleted like 28 tags or categories to improve discovery. There's kind of some, I guess, joking reactions to like the hyper-specific community tags that Steam is adding in. Like one of them is capybaras, like the little tiny rodent animal that has oddly become popular in recent days. But Steam has so many games that discovery of those games is a real issue. It's a real like barrier. And so when recommendations of these games feel kind of disconnected from my actual interests, it does make it hard for me to find the next great game on Steam. And so I think we'll see if this overhaul really helps, but it could really help the kind of niche indie games that I'm always on the hunt for to find their footing without needing the, a fixed algorithm can do more for a great game connecting with the people that it's really made for than multi-million-dollar corporate, marketing budgets can. So hopefully that's one of the benefits of AI is that we're able to use this data in a better way so that the discovery of these games is easier. And we'll kind of talk about that a little later in the show today. Ubisoft announced a kind of a promise to release a new game for Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Ghost Recon by March 2029. So we're looking at sometime in the next 3 years. However, at the same time, they announced the cancellation of like 7 internal projects and 1,200 employee departures. So, financial reporting is kind of showing the company is trying to restructure to stabilize their stock value. And so this really felt like a Hail Mary. Like we're trying to announce something that we're working on it. We're okay. Here's some big franchises that you can get excited about. And I think that's great that these big franchises that people really like are getting new entries. But at the same time, these like 1,200 developers who are departing the company represent massive amounts of like veteran experience. And it leaves this space for like, okay, so if all these people are leaving, who's going to make these games great? And what are you relying on to actually make these games in the first place? So that's like the downside is you just lost a lot of people who potentially would have been the people making these next entries in these huge franchises great. So that kind of leaves me with mixed feelings, but hopefully the number of people that are leaving are also representing opportunities for brilliant independent and mid-tier studios to continue making new games. So this is representing 1,200 people who will not be working on these big AAA titles, but might be working on your next favorite indie game. And so these new ideas are what keep the industry alive. As players, we have to go and support them. We have to be able to find those games there, though, which kind of ties back to that searchability in the Steam storefront and other storefronts as well. So let's jump over and see what's happening in the world of technology with the tech update. It's been kind of a light week on the tech front. AMD announced that they're working on their FSR 4.1, which is that upscaling suite to make games higher resolution, higher clarity. And what they announced is this 4.1 update is going to actually break the hardware exclusivity wall. So they're going to add RDNA 3 hardware, which is like the RX 7000 series of cards, and also PC handhelds. Some of it they're adding this July, and then older cards like the RX 6000 line of graphics cards and the Steam Deck, they're trying to add in early 2027. So, I mean, yes, running these AI models that is a part of this upscaling technology on older cards is going to be a little more taxing. So it's not going to be as efficient as it might have been otherwise. But backwards compatibility is exactly what they should be doing, because upgrading hardware is expensive right now. So if you want to go out and get a new graphics card, you're looking at a substantial investment. And so if engineers can allow the best software they have to run on cards that people already own, that is a victory for the consumer for sure. It definitely breathes extra life into devices like the original Steam Deck. So bringing that kind of update backwards is really, really a good thing, I think, depending on how you feel about the AI technology that's being used as part of this. That's like a whole separate conversation, but I love the idea of let's bring the current day tech to help our older physical hardware run better than it did before. Kind of working in the opposite direction, there are some modders that basically broke through the PS5 internal protections and enabled Linux path tracing to happen on a PS5. And so they actually turned the PS5 into a kind of open source Steam machine running path traced PC games. Now, caveat, they didn't really make them look that great. So like the games were running at super low resolution, super low frames per second. So it kind of reminds me of a year or two ago, I bought one of those mini PCs and tried to kind of configure it as a console for retro games. So what I wanted was I have all these games that I wanted to be able to run via emulation. And I wanted to kind of build like a home console that I could just turn on and let my kids play these old games that I have easily. And so these guys are basically doing the reverse of that, where they're cracking open a modern console and they're turning it into open source, whereas I was taking a PC and trying to turn it into more of a console. So it's a fun kind of experiment, I guess, to make games run and kind of see like what's possible with the current hardware that's out there. That is pretty much it on the tech front. If you have any ideas, things that you see for like tech news that's directly related to gaming, whether that is gaming system type things, display type things, new technologies that are announced that you think somehow ties into games, feel free to send them to me. You can send them to me on social media at The Game Adventure, and you can also email them to me directly at thisisthegameadventure@gmail.com. So with that, let's jump over to some older games at the Retro Rewind. There are some new entries into the Video Game Hall of Fame, including games like Dragon Quest, FIFA, Silent Hill, and Angry Birds, which is wild to think that is in the Hall of Fame. This like old game that came out on mobile platforms years and years ago has had such an impact. It's ended up making TV shows, movies, all kinds of merch everywhere. I remember when you would walk into like a JCPenney's or a Kohl's and you'd have Angry Birds stuffed animals and shirts and everything all over the place. There were some folks who were arguing that Angry Birds is too modern and too simple and should have not been brought in, that there's old arcade cabinet games that deserved one of those spots in the Hall of Fame, and they got beat out by Angry Birds and they didn't think that was right. I would definitely push back on that. So just because a game is old doesn't mean it automatically belongs in the Hall of Fame over a game that really shifted the entire gaming world, really, to think about mobile games. So however you feel about Angry Birds, you don't have to love Angry Birds to recognize that it definitely shifted our feelings about where video games could really live, because it proved that mobile gaming could be like playable and fun, and it brought entirely new demographics into the ecosystem of gaming. And so I think in the impact that it had, if history is made by the impact that these things had on the culture at the time and ongoing, then this definitely belongs in the halls of history for video games. So congratulations, you weird, funny little game that I remember first playing on, I think it was called the LG Dare. I played Angry Birds for the first time, and it was like an eye-opening, oh my goodness, this is an actual video game, and it's on my phone, which means I have a video game all the time, even when I don't have my Nintendo DS in my pocket. So I distinctly remember that with Angry Birds. So congratulations, Angry Birds. Some fans are working on a remake of Need for Speed Underground 2, and they posted some footage of it. They are remaking it in Unreal Engine 5. This is one of the definitely most popular games in that genre from the time that it came out. So I remember playing this on the GameCube. This would have come out in like 2004. So I was in high school playing this game a couple of years after it came out. And I remember loving it. Like, it was just this addictive racing game that just totally drew you into racing. It was my introduction to Need for Speed, really. I had played some of the Burnout titles from Need for Speed, but Underground 2 was like car culture at its height of like street racing, and definitely came out at the same time as some of the Fast and the Furious movies were getting going. So definitely an era in that game. And the project is about 3/4 complete. They are showcasing right now like fully functioning city traffic AI. The cars are driving around in the city. They've overhauled the physics engine. And so it's really cool. But also, like, EA owns that property. And so I'm thinking it's not going to be very long before they drop a cease and desist and make them stop at least talking about this game. But it definitely would be about time. If EA is going to shut that down, all I'm going to say is you better have an official remaster of this game coming down the line soon, because that would absolutely sell like hotcakes if it was approved to be made and released to consumers. Some big games celebrated their 10-year anniversaries this week, including Doom from 2016 and Uncharted 4. So this marks 1 decade since the release of those pieces of software. And definitely people are nostalgic about these games. They are the kind of the pinnacle of these polished, efficient games in that generation of development. It's wild to think that that's 10 years ago. They definitely represent kind of an era where these games were being developed and being sold highly profitably before the industry over the last decade or so became really bloated and kind of started to be unsustainable in the types of corporate structure that they were using to make these games. So from that, let's move into a point of view for us to think about this week. So let's spend a minute talking about what it actually takes to make a video game today, because the conversation around indie development has shifted a lot. There's this kind of myth that the biggest hurdle facing a new developer is the barrier of entry, right? Regarding like tools and technology and money. But if you look at the landscape in 2026, that really isn't true anymore. The barrier to entry for tools has almost completely vanished. Steam allows anyone to publish a game on their storefront through Steam Direct for a flat fee of just $100. And engines like Unreal and Unity and Godot, I think that's how you say that, are free to download. The technology isn't the thing that's holding anyone back. And you don't need a multi-million-dollar corporate budget to produce a video game of high quality. But there's kind of a catch. Because while Steam makes it easy to get on the platform, they still take a big, it's a 30% baseline cut of the developer's revenue. And more important, publishing a game doesn't mean a single soul is ever going to find that game. So we've all seen the success stories. So like Eric Barone of Concerned Ape spent 5 years entirely on his own building Stardew Valley by himself. And he handled the code and the art and the writing and the music. And as of this year, Stardew Valley has officially crossed over 50 million copies sold globally. It is the 11th best-selling video game of all time. Now, Stardew Valley is kind of a unicorn. We can't expect every passionate developer to hit those types of numbers, but it proves that an independent creator can build a sustainable living doing what they love to do. And it requires a lot of skill. It requires original ideas, a mastery of multiple disciplines, but it also requires something that, in my experience, is far more scarce, and that's time. So as an artist and a songwriter myself, those are kind of my creative worlds that I live in. I kind of experience this reality where there's nothing that stops me from recording a song and uploading it to the streaming platforms. That's relatively cheap. The distribution is cheap, but what it does cost me is an immense amount of time, because if I want to make consistently finished and polished releases of high quality music or art, I need an audience that is willing to support me so that I can actually afford the time to do that. And independent game studios are really in the exact same boat. They don't need an AI tool to write their code or to draw their art for them. They need human beings to buy their work so that they can buy groceries and pay rent while they build their next project. And that kind of brings me to what I believe is the missing link in modern gaming, and that's discovery. How does an audience actually find these games? How does the village of people find this person that they're going to support? And we have to look back at history to kind of see the danger of this easy access model for releasing content. Look at what happened to the Nintendo Wii when they opened up their ecosystem to these independent digital manufacturers. It turned into a sea of bloatware that you could not hardly navigate. It became this marketplace that was so flooded with literal trash, you guys. Some of these games that were released on the Wii were just absolute garbage. And so it got to the point where consumers had no idea what was actually good, because there wasn't a functional, trustworthy rating and curation system to filter it. I think Steam has a little better system set up for that, with kind of what are the player reviews and ratings for this happening. But we can't afford to let modern storefronts turn into what happened to the Wii. Platforms like Kickstarter are a great start for that initial funding. And I think Steam is making a genuine effort by updating their tag architecture to kind of make these genres and games more searchable. But data and algorithms can only do so much. I think true discovery is going to require a community curation. So it means human beings pointing at these games and sounding the horn among each other. So if a console giant like Microsoft or Sony really wants to shine a light on the indie space, and Microsoft, I think, has done a good job of this in the past, but they wouldn't do that by just buying up studios and take these massive, aggressive revenue cuts that kind of stifle the growth of these. They would use their massive platforms to actively highlight and elevate these kind of mid-tier type games. But since corporate gaming doesn't want to do it on their own, they don't really have a reason to do that on their own. The responsibility really falls with us. And I'll tell you, I spend a lot of time actually sorting through literally hundreds of industry articles to prepare for this podcast. So what I do is I have like a whole feed set up with all of the major networks that cover like gaming media. And throughout the week, I'll pick up my phone instead of browsing social media for far too long. I'll look at these articles and I'll save the ones as I kind of flip through them. I'll save the ones that are actually about games that I want to talk about. And to be completely honest, about 90% of the coverage from major corporate outlets, I'm looking at you, IGN, is just fluff that has nothing to do with video games. It's sales trackers and like click through affiliate links to buy media. And it's about movies and TV shows, and actual video games make up quite seriously a tiny fraction of the feed. And those are almost exclusively reserved for these like multi-million-dollar AAA projects. So nobody in the mainstream media is doing a very good job of sounding the horn for the little guy. And this is one thing that I want to happen as a part of this podcast. The big picture is to kind of help to fill that gap, to reconnect people with each other around this hobby that I enjoy, right? Video games is a hobby. But it's a livelihood for some people that are trying to make these experiences. And so I want to play a part in whatever way that I can in helping great games to find the people who recognize the greatness in them. Because a community is what actually keeps this medium alive as an art form. So that really brings me to the listener question of the month. We've been asking this throughout the month of May. What hidden gem or upcoming indie game are you incredibly excited about that feels like absolutely nobody else is talking about? So leave me a comment, email me at thisisthegameadventure@gmail.com. Let me know, and let's help each other to discover the next great game. And with that, let's look at what games are headed out soon. First up on the game list for Nintendo games is Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which came out just a few days ago. I did get this game to play with my kids, and so I wanted to give you kind of an idea of what that experience playing with kids is actually like. I've heard some of the reviews for this, and they criticize the game. They say it's uninspired. Kids games shouldn't be B-tier quality. I agree with those sentiments. However, I don't necessarily think they apply to this game. So we've played for a little over an hour to start, and I've played a little more since then. This is a fantastic game to play with your kids. So the control scheme, I will say, does have a little bit of a learning curve. The platform jumping can be challenging for younger kids, especially if they aren't used to platformers. I would say within 45 minutes of playing, it was too challenging for my son to really do on his own. But the charm is all there. And the music notes section of the game, where you are jumping on these platforms and they're like creatures that you're jumping on, and they make musical notes and they're making songs as you jump across the platform. So I was like struggling a little bit to get on the platforms. But my kids just were like, this is amazing. They're like singing as you're jumping on them. And so it exists in this really nice space where the most fun actually comes from sitting on a couch together with your kids. My kids are the ones naming the creatures. Some of the names that they've given them are absolutely fantastic. I might have to share a video at some point of some of those names that my kids have given these creatures. I'll have to maybe put together an actual like review of this. I haven't done reviews as the game adventure ever before, because I'm still trying to figure out what the role is that game reviews are supposed to fill. Like a 10-point review system, I don't really find that helpful because it doesn't tell me specifically what's great and what's not great, or like who this is actually for. So like some of the reviews that were really negative on this game were from adults that played the game, it seems like expecting it to be something that it was never intended to be. So like, where's the kids' take on this? Did they think that it was fun? Because some of my favorite games would be absolutely destroyed in reviews today, but I still loved them and they were a lot of fun. So maybe we need to rethink reviews. And as I kind of rethink that, maybe it's time for like a dad on the couch with kids review of a game like Yoshi. Another game coming out very shortly is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is Square Enix bringing this RPG to Nintendo's ecosystem for the first time, which is very exciting. If you are a Final Fantasy fan, they are basically, this is exactly what the new hardware is for, right? This is why we have a Switch 2, because it allows you to put this huge game onto a portable Nintendo console, which is pretty important for a game that is a premium single-player role-playing game that takes a long time. This is going to be a massive time sink if you are into this kind of game. It comes out on June 3rd, and the price is $70, $69.99, so kind of high. Save your pennies now. Star Fox comes out next month, officially revealed by Nintendo. That is slated for release at the end of June. And the kids, when they saw this video, were very excited about the game. It's like pure nostalgia, but updated graphics make it look really beautiful. So if they handle this well and it's still fun to play, Nintendo definitely is going in the right direction with the IPs that they're trying to resurrect and bring back to the player. So I'm excited. Keep this on your radar for June. It's another one that I'm hoping to buy and play because I think it's going to be worth it. Under PlayStation, 007 First Light is launching on May 26th. So that's like 3 days away on Tuesday. Universal hype for this game. Everybody's excited for this one. It's a very high budget single player experience. It is the perfect antidote to like live service fatigue. Definitely, they said it's going to hit 60 frames per second on the base consoles, and it's going to use stuff like PSSR to scale up on systems like the PS5 Pro. So this is exactly what the market says they're looking for right now, is this like high production action game with no live service additions. And so it'll be interesting to see if people actually vote for a game like this with their money by actually buying it. It does look beautiful, and it looks like exactly the kind of game that you want to play right around the beginning of summer. So Marvel announced Wolverine. So this was just announced a little while ago, and they're going to talk about it during the June 2nd State of Play. This will be a PS5 exclusive. It is a massive game featuring Wolverine. And if you're into X-Men, you're into Wolverine, this looks like it's going to be a kind of a gritty type of game. And so it's going to be exciting to see what they do with this IP. This is the kind of premier title that is going to allow you to see kind of where your hardware dollars went. If you bought a PS5 Pro, this game will be one that shows off what it can actually do. Under Xbox games, we have Echo Generation 2, which is a stylized, like turn-based RPG indie adventure that serves as a kind of love letter to 90s supernatural mysteries. This is coming out on Xbox, PC, and Xbox Cloud as well. And so I haven't really heard a lot about this one because everybody's so focused on Forza Horizon 6, but it does come out on May 27th. So it looks like Wednesday of this coming week. This might be a mid-tier kind of gem that deserves looking at. It's very charming looking, very full of personality. It launched straight onto Game Pass. And so there's really no, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, there's no barrier at all for you to support this really creative independent game. So definitely that's one to keep an eye out for. If you are a fan of Jurassic Park, the game Jurassic World Evolution 3 is coming out. This is the next major like park management simulation. It is a day one Game Pass drop, releasing on June 2nd. So next week instead of this coming week. And then finally under PC and mobile games, we have this game called Paralives that will be coming out. This is the indie life simulator that officially enters Steam Early Access next week. So if you want to try something early, it carries a built-in launch discount as well. So usually the price is going to be $40. It is 10% off at $35.99 with that launch discount. It comes out on the 25th, so this coming Monday, and it'll be on PC and Mac via Steam. A lot of excitement around this because it's the first like independent competitor to kind of challenge The Sims monopoly in decades. And I'm not talking about the Sims version of the Monopoly board game that probably exists along with every other type of Monopoly. I mean, the stranglehold that The Sims has had, as much as I love that game, there really aren't any competitors to it in this kind of space of like simulation life games. So they just launched their post-launch roadmap. They're really focusing on bugs and performance optimization from like June until September before dropping some free expansions like weather and pets and seasons. These are all expansions that The Sims have charged a pretty penny for. I'll tell you, it's really hard to justify, even though you can get the base Sims 4 game for free. Then to pay for an upgrade or a pack for like $40 is hard to swallow. I have never been able to pull the trigger on those because they're just so high for a DLC. But this developer has committed to never having paid DLCs. So this is like the indie studio way. This is the way for the indie studio to go. The next game on the list is Realm of Ink. This has been a really pretty stylized, like Ink style martial arts, action, roguelike game. That's a mouthful of different categories. You can tell it doesn't really fit neatly into any of those. Comes out on Steam Early Access next week, and it's looking at a multi-platform release on all systems on May 26th, on Tuesday. So this one sits at a really high user rating on Steam. There's a lot of deep mechanical combat is what kind of the reviews are saying. It has a really distinct visual identity, which is what I think makes this one stand out. This is a good example of kind of that mid-tier indie game that we talked about. It really has a hand-drawn art style. It looks incredible on the screen. So if that's something that you'd like to check out, that is coming to all over the place platforms, and it's been live on Steam for quite a while. So check out Realm of Ink. The last game on the list this week is one called Lost Castle 2. It is a sequel to the original, obviously. This has been pretty much ignored by the major commercial outlets. All of its updates, it's handled via like community updates, kind of grassroots style. It's a very cooperative-based indie experience. Tons of people have enjoyed this, really highly reviewed, and so it's fun to see them come back with a very polished mid-tier budget sequel without losing the identity of the original, which was a much lower budget game. And so this is exactly what I love to see is, hey, we did this all on our own. We built this game. People really enjoyed it. It served the audience well. And now we're making another one. And we've got a little more budget behind it this time. And so we can continue to chase the dream of what we want this game to be. So it's got kind of like a cartoon art style. It's very fun. So I think that is one to keep an eye out for. That one's called Lost Castle 2. That pretty much brings us to the end of today's show. Like I said, it was a shorter week for news and releases this week. Don't forget to send me that list of games that you think nobody is talking about, but they are absolutely exciting to you and you want people to know about them. You can leave those in a comment on my social media, which is just The Game Adventure, or you can email them to me at thisisthegameadventure@gmail.com. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you again next week, same time, same place. Peace.